Hey everybody, Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner-creator of FSW, the Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. Joe, how you doing this week, man?
Oh, tremendous.
Right now, is it a steady pace run or is it a sprint to try to get to the first night of the collective?
Let's say today it's a sprint and tomorrow it's the other one. It's like every day is different. It's like, man, let's get this over with, and then it's like, man, we got more stuff we got to do. So it's like it's totally different each day because there's so much to do.
Yeah. Speaking of, so much to do. Let me ask you about, and we haven't talked much about Ed's show. Ed in San Antonio has a women's show going on. How how difficult is it for him to basically kind of communicate with you, make sure everything's in place, and is he the one who is essentially doing all the booking and all the legwork on his end to make sure everything comes off right? How's that working for his particular show?
Yeah, we've worked with him before, so he's going to book his phone flights. He's going to book his talent. He'll ask me about a couple people, and especially the ones that we work with. So, I connected him. So Viva Van's going to be on the show. I believe Maserati, Alice Blair, Strella, and he went through me to get all them. It's like I communicated, like, hey, he's wanting to pay this, and of course, when Ed's got a show and I say he's paying this, most responses are hell yeah. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, okay, so in that instance, when you have someone who has that type of, bank because they're rolling it into one or two shows a year essentially, and of course that's more attractive to talent to then jump on that opportunity. For you as a promoter who's running uh, at least two or three times a month, and usually two of those are school, the FSW arena shows, and you have Future Shock, you have High Octane. Does that make it a little bit harder? And does is that kind of then where you get that reputation of people saying, Joe doesn't pay much? Is it that the whole thing that they don't really realize and conceptualize that you are running a regular, almost weekly show as compared to one or two a year? Do they even take that into consideration when it comes to what you can pay because of the circumstances of how your company runs?
well, yeah, they actually have to because I will tell them beforehand because I know at that point I have to. And I'm like, hey, I don't have the budget Ed has, but if you'd like to work, then this is what it's going to take for you to be able to work on the show. And in most cases, they're cool with it. They're looking for a booking. They're not going to turn down more money to wrestle for somebody and like, well, I normally get this, but he wants to pay me a little more. Nah, I'll do that. Unless you know somebody really well, they're not going to give you their best rate. They're going to
Yeah,
start at a number that they'd like to make, and then there's always the number that they're okay with taking. That's why a lot of times we like to deal with the same people that we've gotten good relationships with because, we don't really have to squabble about, well, no, I need this and that, I want that. While there's some guys that I've worked with for a long time that whatever I pay them is cool.
right.
Obviously I'm not going to give Hammerstone $20, but Hammerstone and me have never discussed rate ever. So the bigger shows, the ones that do well, his pay fluctuates on every show.
Sure.
You know, when you bring it in like the Mecca, now you got to have a conversation with a Jacob Fatu or a Davey Richards or guys that you haven't used. You know, kind of like when Davey came in after he didn't make it the first time. It's kind of like, hey, I'm going to fly myself in. What do you think you can do? Okay, well, if you're flying yourself in, you probably saved me, $300-400. But I did pay that $300-400 4 years ago that I never got back.
Right.
So, hey, I can give you this, and I need you to be in the first round of a tournament win and get to the finals of a four-way. I can do this. He's like, okay, and we did the seminar. So he made up for whatever he was going to make, and he got to come to Vegas, and he brought his girlfriend, and they hung out, and he was in Vegas for a few days. So, he was happy with the situation because obviously he's okay with it because he's coming out and working our Thursday and Friday show in a couple weeks. So we think, and he didn't make the last Mecca, but there was a snowstorm where Sam Adonis didn't make it either. So, it was a giant snowstorm. So we're not going to hold that against him. It's like, oh, see, Davey Richards missing another show. Those circumstances were, warranted in that position.
In thinking of all your experiences, has there ever been anybody who has put you in this situation of holding you up for either more money that day or wanting more things at it that simply you just couldn't do because it then would lead to even more demands and stuff like that? Did you ever deal with anything that was kind of in that ballpark of being a pain in the ass because they're demanding X and hey, they're 4 matches away and they put you in that spot?
Well, yeah, that has happened. It's very infrequent, but I had a conversation about a show. Oh man, I've been wanting to come to FSW. This is what I normally get. And I'm like, well, that's way out of our league for what we're looking to spend. Well,
Yeah.
What are you looking to spend? And I said a number. And that person was like, instead of a flight, I can get down there on my own. Okay, well, that was adding the money.
Right.
And then the next day was like, yeah, you know what? I overspoke, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to need this. And it's like, okay. And then the day of the show, another show got canceled that they were on. And they were like, hey, bro, I need a flight home because the show I'm doing got canceled. I'm like, I'm not responsible for that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And, it was cordial and stuff. But guess what? I won't be using that person in the future.
Yeah.
So, good business is good business. If you agree to a rate, you're selling merch, you're doing things, you're coming into a show that's got a lot of people, you got a marquee matchup. And, in that situation, I was kind of forced to, pay a little bit extra money, which was still less than their going rate that they told me, but is what they told me they would work for me for. And it's like, if you tell me that, it's just like if I tell you I'm going to give you $300 and I hand you 200 and say, hey, sorry, man, we were late. You didn't really get people to come to the show. In most cases, a wrestler's going to want to beat your ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've always told people up front, hey, I may not pay the best. And I've told this story forever, but I'm going to pay you what I say I'm going to pay you. And there are times I'll throw you an extra, especially like localized guys, not fly-ins, like guys from Arizona or California. Whether it's another $5, $10, $20, $50, I've done that. Travel-wise, we had one of our main guys that he couldn't get down here other than a flight. I mean, he had no way to get down here. Someone was up with his car, so he had to rent the car. And I paid him less than what the rent-a-car would have been. It was Hammerstone. And I was like, dude, how much was the rent-a-car? And, I paid him for the rent-a-car. It's like, dude, I get it. It's not like you're doing it every time, and now I got to pay you this extra money. And this was before he was a named guy, but he had been an FSW guy. He was probably our champion at some point in that time frame. And he was a guy who was just going to eat it because he's a professional. He accepted the booking. Something came up on how he had to get there, and he didn't say, "Hey, Joe, I got an issue, blah, blah, blah," which I've had in the past with other people, like, "Hey, I've had an issue. I got to do this. It's going to cost that. Is there any way you can help?"
Right.
You know, because those are a lot of the guys that we bring in, that they're communicative with me, and I believe we have a very good relationship. And they'll work for me for less because they like coming to Vegas, they like Joe, they like FSW, whatever the reason may be. And sometimes you find yourself like, man, I remember with Willie Mack, like, he wouldn't ask for a raise, and I gave him a little bit more, and I gave him a little bit more because, he was so inexpensive. And it's like, man, this dude's worth way more than that. You know what I mean? So it's like the same thing with Hammerstone, what I would give him at a school show. I've kind of made it a point. Any regular that's on our show, if they wanted a raise and were deserving, if that raise got them to be where Hammerstone was, I would give Hammerstone a few more dollars because he's done it for 9 years. So, Chris Bay, we trained the dude. So he doesn't say, well, this is my rate. It's like, hey, what can you do? Hey, I can do this. Okay. He's never once said, no, I'm not going to do it. It's not enough.
Right.
And those are the relationships you forge. And that's how you're able to put out this big company, because you don't see Chris Bay working everywhere in Vegas. You don't see Hammerstone working everywhere else in Vegas, because their rate would be different than my rate. And for smaller shows, to pay a Hammerstone or Bay, you're probably not going to really want to dig that deep unless you got a real marquee match that you want to utilize. Like, Kenny King has not worked any outside shows, but he did the Big Valley show against Fresco. And money's money, but Kenny only took that match because of his respect for Fresco.
Right.
Well, if it was Joe Schmo, he probably would have passed on it.
And really quick on that, one of the things that I was impressed about is that, Kenny King, you have to be good to be able to go with him. Fresco looked like a professional wrestler, man. He did his job. Kenny made Fresco look good. Fresco made Kenny look good. And you could see the respect, and you could see why Kenny did that, for Fresco, and probably a nice payday as well. Does that concern you when, let's say, a guy like Fresco, then, if it wasn't Kenny King, let's say it's Joe Schmo, and that guy is getting a little more offense in, a little more, even though he might not beat Fresco, he's looking really strong. And one of the guys who wrestles regularly for your company is looking a little weaker. Is that something that guys should be kind of aware of in terms of not necessarily holding up a company so they get what they want, like Sasha Banks and Naomi just did Monday night, but really that idea of, you have a home in Vegas and FSW by going to other places in the area and wrestling guys who might not be on your level per se in FSW. Does that cause a little friction for you as a promoter with talent, or is it something that you have to just be aware of and then just go on with your business to kind of continue to keep those guys looking strong in your company?
You're aware of it. You may not like it, you know what I mean? But that's how it is. It's just like when we've used people that were top guys at the other companies in town. You know, what they did there has no meaning on my company. You
Right.
know, if I need you, this is the job. I need you to put over Jay Vidal, and you're not going to get a lot of offense. Well, you could choose not to do it, but that's what I need from you. So I can't dictate to one of my guys, oh, you're going over there to wrestle X,
Right.
and he's going to thump you in 3 minutes, and you're going to get almost nothing. At that point, there's nothing you can do about it. They want to work. They want to get the payday. You know, they want to get the experience. You know, when we first started, Kenny King became our heavyweight champion.
Right.
And one of my favorite people, Legacy, was running his company. And he had a tournament. And the tournament was a 4-way, 1-pin wins. And he decided he was going to put Jason Partain over as the champion. Well, there was Jason Partain, there was Kenny King, and there was 2 other guys. And Jason Partain pins the FSW heavyweight champion. Now, I personally didn't like it. And it's like, right after the show, I'm like, what the fuck? He couldn't have just pinned somebody else. But he wanted to establish Jason Partain for his company. What better way to do it than pinning the hometown hero? He's not,
Right.
you know, he may have looked at it as, hey, he's the hometown hero and he's the FSW heavyweight champion. And it didn't affect my relationship with Legacy in any way. You know,
Right.
we used him on shows. He used our ring. I used to go there and did the sound for their show. And people on our end would be like, what the fuck? You're the owner of FSW. You're bringing your equipment and you're getting. It was like when we needed a ring, he was the guy who stepped up, didn't charge me as long as I got his guys on. In the future after that, we still use some of his guys because I like him and we got along. So I had no issues in doing something for him. You know, in some cases, he did more for me than I did for him. And later on, I probably did more for him than he did for me. But it wasn't looked at that way. It was looked
Right.
at helping each other. And, you know, even in the Vegas thing, yeah, we've worked with people. Unfortunately, things didn't work out to benefit both parties. So
Right.
whether they didn't feel benefited or we didn't feel benefited, why would I work with somebody that I'm not going to feel like a benefit? You know, it's the same issues with Dave Marquez in Hollywood. You know, they got a lot of stuff. They use our guys. And we just, at one point, looked like we had an agreement on stuff with the TV out here. And I guess we didn't. So, you know, whatever. No harm, no foul. I would still take a call from Dave Marquez any day. But in the past, we didn't want to do anything. Like, it was like, it's not really benefiting us. Like, they used, hey, because we thought we were going to work together. FSW was part of the United Wrestling Network at one
Right.
point. You know, the RMB went up there. Remy Marcel, you know, we had an agreement to have the Nevada State Championship done there. And then the pandemic and all the other stuff. So the idea was to work together. And because at that point, we felt it would benefit us to have on a national pay-per-view or as national as it could be, you know, and when Nick Aldis is defending the NWA title, hey, FSW's got their title. You know, Lacey Ryan defended the FSW Women's Championship on that show.
Right.
But in the long run, you know, working together just didn't happen. We had a lot of stops and starts. You know, the Red Carpet Rumble was going to be out here at one point. And unfortunately, a conflict because me and Stu Stone were tight and he had a lot to say, but there was other people who had a lot to say too. And they wanted more say for a show in my arena with half of my guys. And it's like, dude, it's your Red Carpet Rumble. Do what you want for that. Just make sure my guys look strong. You know, you're not going to use 10 of my guys to come in there and just be jobbers. That's not how it works. So whatever, you know, we never had an agreement. It didn't work out. You know, next time maybe it will. You know what I mean? And, you know, it took a while, and we worked with GCW, and through GCW, now maybe we got something with Black Label, and bringing Callahan in the past and becoming friendly with him. Now we got a relationship with Revolver. So, even got hit up by some AEW people. Hey, we're going to be in town. You want to do a seminar? And it's like, yeah, we kind of got Davey Richards. So, no offense to QT Marshall, but we got Davey Richards.
Oh man, I just QT Marshall doing a seminar. Listen.
I'll tell you what, he's the right hand man of Tony Khan. If you want to get in with somebody good,
yeah.
Whether you think you're going to learn or not, it's the same thing when we had 50 people for Booker T and we had 8 for Davey Richards.
Yeah.
Booker T can give you a full explanation about everything about how this business is run. But if you want to be one of the best professional wrestlers in the world, you would think you'd want to come to a Davey Richards seminar because that dude is fucking informative, hands-on. I know he's got a bad rep, but Teddy Hart was the same way. Like, he would explain intricately how and why a move was done and things like that. And, I'm pretty sure he taught Chris Bay how to do the Canadian Destroyer. So,
yeah, I think you're right on that. Let me ask you, we're kind of talking a little bit about some of the companies that will be in on the collective for Memorial Day weekend. You brought up Wrestling Revolver. Sammy looks like he has come back from his injury. Is there any word on if Callahan will be participating in any of the cards on the next?
I saw that for the Revolver show, it said an appearance by. I'm pretty sure he's saving his first match for Impact because, they did him good while he was hurt. So I know that's the thing. He kind of kayfabed me a little bit because it was like, hey, how you feeling, Bubba? I'm going to rehab. I'm hoping to be back in the next couple months. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, shit, motherfucker showed up today. So, he will be there. Obviously, it's his company. So, if we can utilize him and even just cutting a promo or something.
Right. Any other matches coming up for that particular show? Is there anything that is absolutely set in stone? Is there anything that you're still looking on?
We've announced 5 matches. So in my head, I don't think I need to go through all those.
Right.
So it's an 8-match card. So match 6 will be, say, a tag team match. We got Death Proof on our side, and we're still discussing who their opponents are going to be. It might be Violence is Forever, and it might be Richard Holiday and Anthony Green. So we're trying to figure that out. Then there's the Scramble match. And the Scramble match will have Funny Bone. It'll have Juicy, a Damian Drake. And there's a couple of others that, we are working on for that. Then we're talking about like a Team FSW versus Team Revolver that Remy Marcel, Viva Van, probably a Cal Jack, and maybe even Bodie against Billy Starks, maybe Dan the Dad, and we're still kind of figuring out, those final little spots to, hey, this guy might be in a scramble. This guy, Adam Brooks is on the show. So he's probably going to be in the scramble match, So, Eli Everfly had to pull out, so that's one less guy in the mix. Like on Luck of the Draw, Juicy was going to be in a scramble, but we couldn't do Holiday and Hammerstone. So Juicy has stepped in to challenge Hammerstone for the FSW Championship. And then we're looking to see where Richard Holiday fits in that situation.
Yeah. With looking at that situation, has it been? Is it more chaotic when you're dealing with um, a number of different companies or talent where it's kind of moving parts, as opposed to you guys just versus Pro Wrestling Revolver, say? So that is pretty easy. You're going through Sammy, and you two are hashing out what's going to happen and how it's going to look. Is it harder to do the cards for uh, the luck of the draw, and then the the full tilt, the Let It Ride, the finale show on Sunday? Is that something that is more complex to book because of the fact that you're not just dealing with one company, you're dealing with either multiple companies or multiple wrestlers?
Yeah, it's definitely way more difficult because when it was FSW versus GCW, we were the offshoot of a GCW show. So
Right.
GCW was bringing all their talent here. So now we just had to pick from that talent, and me and Brett would sit down and put together the idea what the matches were going to be. On this one, it's like, who's Sammy bringing in? Okay, well, there might be a couple of spots because Sammy may not have used Dan the Dad in the past, for example, but he's using him on this show, so we could kind of incorporate him. And the thing is, I have to rely on everybody else. Like, I don't have a flight to book, so I got to hope Sammy booked the flight to make sure the guy gets here on time. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, when I talk to Violence is Forever, for example, they were doing the Black Label show at 11 p.m. I hear good things about it. Hey, you guys, and he hit me up. And I'm like, well, you guys available for the Sunday show? They're like, no, we're going to do Prestige. But let me check on Friday because I'll be in on time, but I don't know if my partner's getting in time for the Revolver show. So, I also got to make some calls because it's been kind of left open and I haven't talked to Sammy. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping he's booked all the flights. You know what I mean? It'd
Yeah.
be kind of shitty if Josh Alexander is waiting, is getting on a plane the next day and I got Tom Lawler booked.
Yeah.
And then dealing with the hotels. It's Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
Those aren't cheap. Thankfully, my wife works at a station casino property, so I'm able to get a little better rates.
Right.
But, Thursday's great rates, but Friday and Saturday, is still, a decent amount of money. So when you need 6-7 rooms, that adds up.
How is that obviously we're talking about Memorial Day weekend, so the prices are jacked up. But for, let's say, just a normal Mecca that's happening in June, or a show that's even happening in October or November, before the Christmas season, does that is that something that you have to factor in? Is the cost of rooms and getting someone a room, or if, let's say, you pay for a flight, do you then basically turn around and say, listen, I'll get you a flight, but you're going to have to book your own hotel room? And is it much easier when a guy says, oh, yeah, I can't wait to come. A buddy of mine lives here and I'll just crash at his place? What is it like on that end of, travel and accommodations?
Well, it's all based on your level of where you're at in your professional wrestling career. You know what I mean? It's like, Kevin Cross may have some family in town, but he's with his girl. He's going to much rather want a hotel room. And I'm not going to spend money on a guy, $450 on a flight, and then squawk about $100 hotel room. You know what I mean? But I don't book enough of those guys. Like at the last Mecca, you know what I mean? It was like we had to get a couple of rooms, but it was in February. So not the biggest deal. But you use a Willie Mack, for example. Well, he lives here. So, it makes things easier. TJP, he lives here. Hammerstone, he'll drive in. So that's our main event. you know, pretty much. Hammerstone, TJP, and Brian Cage. He lives here. So these are big money guys that are all able to get here on their own. So that saves a lot of money, you know, in that situation. You know, Jacob Fatu, he's out of Sacramento. Not that big a deal, you know. And, you know, it was Willie and Remy. Again, two homegrown guys. The tag team match was homegrown guys. You know, Casey Navarro was the only guy, you know, and he comes in cheap, and it was on a Spirit airline or whatever, and, you know, things were good. So the cost wasn't out there. We made our money back. We made a decent profit on the deal, and that included, you know, the meet and greets with Cross and Scarlett Bordeaux, and it was a big event for the Vegas community who grew up with Kevin Cross.
Right. And speaking of events, I had seen recently within the last week that on Saturday, it looks like AEW's doing some kind of fan fest. Does that make you a little leery on, and obviously on Saturday, FSW itself does not have a show, but in terms of, you know, getting these guys hooked up with the Silver Nugget, and you want to look good for them, and then also in the eyes of the Silver Nugget, does that kind of, you know, throw a wrench or kind of make you just go, you know, damn it, you already got Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and now you're trying to take people away from, you know, a day that we could use all day by throwing a fan fest? Is that in any way just kind of a little bit of a bummer to find out that they're doing something like that?
No, I figured they were going to be anyway. So, you know, the thing is, it's from 10 a.m. to 6. GCW had already sold out their seats for the event. So if they don't show up to go to a fan fest, well, they got their money. And the thing is, there's GCW fans who are coming in that aren't going to AEW. They're going to be coming into our events. They don't care about AEW. There's a lot of people that do care about AEW, so they're going to pick and choose some of the events. But the bottom line is, either way, there's 10 times as many wrestling fans in Vegas that weekend than there normally would be. So we have to put out a card. You know, it's the same thing with Rampage. They're running Friday. We're running Friday. They start at 3 o'clock. But everybody knows AEW Dark is using a lot of upstart talent, that our card is way better than what AEW Dark is going to run. You know, we got the Impact World Champion. We have the guy who was just the New Japan Open Champion. We have the MLW Heavyweight Champion, you know, on this show. We have the Impact X Division Champion in Trey Miguel. You know, it's like you look at every match on that card, and there's the four-way's got Rich Swann, Chris Bay, Kenny King, and JT Dunn. You know, JT Dunn's the least known of the four, and he's their champ.
Yeah.
You know, and JT Dunn's awesome. So, you know, we got Jay Vidal and with Trey Miguel. We got Mike Bailey and Matt Vandergrift. You know, if you're a wrestling fan, that's a much better show. If you're a wrestling fan, do you want to go spend $100 for CM Punk autograph, or do you want to watch the fucking Briscoes?
Yeah.
Or Matt Cardona? You know, Sammy's running at 4 o'clock. Like, how many hours you going to spend at the Fan Fest when you probably have met these people 5 other times and got autographs? You know, those are the super fan AEW people that it didn't matter if there was a fan fest or not. They probably wouldn't come to our show. So if you want to come to our show, I'm pretty sure you're going to figure out a way to do it.
As we look at the Sunday show, where are you on that? Because I know when we talked last week, it was still kind of feeling out what's going to happen with that show. Has that taken a little more shape?
Yeah, it definitely has. We got more guys set for the event. Anthony Green's going to be sticking around all weekend, so he'll be there. Richard Holiday, he'll be there. Jay Vidal, Matt Vandergriff, Juicy, and TBD is going to defend the FSW tag titles on the show. I talked with Brett and GCW and LA Fight, since he owns both. They're going to represent at that show. Just talked with Black Label Pro. They're going to have a couple of guys representing there. We're probably having Sky High, since we have been looking to work with Mike Rain. They'll defend the Best of the West tag team titles. So, and then we're looking at, from Revolver. There's a lot of guys that can represent Revolver that probably aren't leaving till, Sunday evening. That, we just got to lock everybody in, and on our end, the Jacob Austin Youngs and the Codys and Remy's and Sharps and, even Brett the Thread and a Nick Xander. Those are shows that potentially they can be on the Sunday, because we're going to try to focus some of our younger talent. So we'll see.
And when you look at the whole of it from Thursday through Sunday, and you look at the amount of talent, and you look at what a fan can expect when they attend all shows between Thursday and Sunday, are there any whistles and bells? Are there any meet and greets, any signings that are going to be happening, especially on Saturday when it's pretty much an all-day event at Silver Nugget? Is there anything special that the fans can expect that might be planned by either FSW or one of the other companies involved?
It's possible on the other end. I know we're doing a meet and greet for the FSW Revolver show. We're also trying to put together, something for the Saturday between the Edge show and Sammy's show, because we got a little bit of a window there also. But the difference on the Thursday show is on Friday against Revolver, you're seeing the best of the best, well-known talents mixed in with a few sprinkles of surprises of, maybe some underutilized talent that maybe Revolver only uses, FSW only uses. They haven't really created a buzz. At Luck of the Draw on Thursday, we're using guys from all over the United States who in their area, like a Jared Diaz, who's awesome. And he was out here for SummerSlam weekend. Titus Alexander just put over, by Will Ospreay. And he's going to wrestle Chris Bay on Thursday. And, we got so many other guys. This Axel Rico works for Warrior from Chicago. There's a guy coming in from Germany. He's called The Rotation. And he described himself as a luchador from Germany. So, I believe Mike Bailey's getting married this week or next week in Vegas. And he works for WXW, and he's going to be here for the wedding. So he hit me up, and it's like, well, we'll find a spot for you. Guy we used last year, Percy Drews, is making his way out here from the Midwest, who's, extremely talented. And then we're lucky enough that Holiday and Anthony Green are moving base to California for about a month and a half. So they're going to be around, and Sin Bodie's on the show, and Funny Bone, and Damian Drake, and Juicy, and some of Juicy's crew will be here. So you're going to see, Hammerstone, Greg Sharp, and Davey Richards. A lot of the locals, and especially the FSW roster guys, they're really looking forward to it because Sharp hasn't had that kind of marquee match with a big name. In a while, when he wrestled Paul London years ago. So, this is a great opportunity. We saw Jacob Austin Young have, so far, one of the candidates for match of the year with Davey Richards. just a
Yeah.
few months back. So, luck of the draw, you're going to see, it's the luck of the draw, like who was going to be in town and trying to mix and match things and, who's going where, and of course, like Matt Vandegrift, probably going to be, in a scramble. It's funny, GCW, they got their scramble. Revolver's got their scramble. Everybody used to goof on me for having all these scramble matches. Everybody does them because there's so much talent around that you want to showcase. One thing I've learned, if you do a 6-man tag and you do a 6-man scramble is way more exciting.
Agreed.
The 6-man tag, there's only 2 guys in the ring at once. In a 6-man scramble, it's every man for himself. So, and right now I'm just deciding whether the return of the Fray will happen at Let It Ride. We got a good core of guys. 2 guys start every minute. Another guy comes in, and it's pinfall or submission. So it's a mini Royal Rumble where you don't get to just throw somebody over the top rope, which doesn't mean a thing.
Funny enough, I believe it was just announced on Impact that they're actually going to be running that exact gimmick match, I think, at Slammiversary.
There you go. They heard me talking about it, these fuckers. That Impact always likes stealing shit of ours. Scott D'Amore.
They took Chris Bay, they took Cross, they took your match ideas.
Yeah, unbelievable. I've been trying to take their Ultimate X match. It's just too difficult to kind of put everything together without hopefully not killing anybody.
Yeah, that's a big factor, and boy, it would be cool to see something like that. But man, talk about the planning and the execution. It has to be very safe and could be crazy off the hook. But you said that Damian Drake will be tagging with Funny Bone and with Sin Bodhi. Now the question is this the opportunity for Damian Drake to do face paint for the match?
I believe he did with the Unguided at one point.
Yeah. I think this. That he loves the comic books, and I think this is where we see the Joker in this one. That's my.
It's still face paint. You didn't say what kind of face paint. You said face paint.
True. True.
I'm calling that team the Disciples of Sin. So there's a chance Bodhi may get in there too.
Yeah. Oh,
because Bodhi's done the face paint when he teamed with Sin Bodhi.
Yeah. Did you ever think of doing the Doink and Dink type gimmick with Bodhi being basically exactly dressed like Sin and painted like Sin, but
means I'd have to put Sin on another show.
Yeah. When you look at the accomplishments that FSW has had with talent who's been either trained by FSW or has become part of the roster, you have an extensive list. This just became official. I believe it was yesterday that Toa is officially under AEW contract, and it looks like they might be.
Oh my God! Really? Oh wait, I knew that for a month or two.
Right. But now it looks like he might even be going into more of a prominent role than just starting out and being on the internet matches. When you look at Toa in the short time that you've known him, seen him, dealt with him as a talent, does a wrestler like that, and for the young guys, should they seek out advice from a wrestler like him, and how to go about getting a contract, not just based on your talent, but based on the way you present yourself as a professional and the way you do business? Is that something that the guys should be really kind of looking at and finding the guys who have been doing things right to understand, what you should be doing? And sometimes if it's coming from a trainer, it's like getting something from a school teacher where you kind of tune it out a little bit, where it comes better from someone who, you might not see regularly, but took that path. What does that mean to you to have a guy like Toa around, or to have a guy like Bay around, where they can share that knowledge and experience and are willing to talk to guys about that?
Well, the way Toa got part of FSW was, which I may have told the story here before or whatever, but Juicy was working a GCW show. The venue didn't let him do it because there was no fans allowed. The pandemic was going on. So that's how the relationship started with GCW. Brett was like, hey, can we use your arena? Or I think I actually offered it to him. If like, hey, if you need anything, blah, 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 blah. So Juicy was booked on the show. And Toa, who he just started tagging with, came down. And the first person that came up to me to introduce himself is this big fucking Samoan dude. And he's like, hey, I just want to introduce myself because Sefafatu, Solo Sikoa, is obviously Rikishi's son. So he spent a lot of time in California and at Knox Pro where Toa trained. And Sefa said, you got to get to FSW, bro. You got to get to FSW. So he went out of his way to meet me. And it was, busy day. We were, I didn't have a lot to do because I was just renting out the arena. Yeah, nice to meet you, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Because I get 100 people that hit you up. Right. Obviously I noticed he was a big motherfucker. You know what I mean? But I don't know if he can work or anything. He just introduced himself, made himself known. And then I think they had a match. They might have wrestled. I don't even know who they wrestled, but I remember he wrestled. And it was like, this guy looks like he's pretty fucking good. And then I talked to him way more after that. And, I genuinely liked him. He was a super nice guy, very humble, putting over what he needed to. Turned out he was half Puerto Rican too. So, hey, we had that little bond, the Samoan Rican, and then he explained to me because I had remembered that they did wrestle at a different place in town. And my kid had brought him up, and it's like, I can't pay that kind of money. I heard what they were getting paid. It's like, I've never seen this guy before. He looks like he's promising. And then I found out that he had never wrestled in front of a crowd until he came to FSW. And and that's how you start a relationship. It's like, hey, bro, love to have you, but this is what we pay on these shows, and this is what I can give you. He's like, I don't care about the money. I want to be on the show and blah, blah, blah. Music to my ears. I don't care about the money. I want to be on the show. Right. It's not like I'm not going to pay the dude. It's like, okay, now I don't have to worry that, because some guys are concerned with that. And that's why they kind of don't stick around, because they feel they deserve more money, which I probably agree. But just because you show up on New Japan Strong doesn't mean I can afford to now pay you 3 times the price. Yes, I know you're very good. You're on that show. But, they can pay you that kind of money. I can't. If you want to work a school show, I'll pay you more when you work the casino show, but it's still going to be less than $1 million company. That's just, that's just the semantics of it all. So, we pushed him hard. He didn't care if Juicy couldn't make it, because Juicy would get a lot of bookings. So sometimes it would be single, sometimes it would be tag. He didn't care. He just wanted to be on the show. Right. And what's funny is when we made the decision to put the tag belts on them, we had gotten, more of a commitment from Juicy. So we were like, oh, this is good to go. We got TBD hanging around. That might be a good feud down the line. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, sorry, Joe, I can't make it. I'm getting flown for AEW Dark. I'm like, motherfucker, they always book them the days we got shows? Fuck. And then it was like I had him booked in a singles match against Hammerstone. And then like 4 days before the show, hey, Joe, I'm really sorry, but, they're bringing me in last minute. It's like, what the fuck? What are you going to tell the guy? Oh, you ain't going to work for me no more if you do that. It's like, that's their ultimate goal, to get signed by one of the major companies. So, we still pulled the trigger on the tag titles. And then within no time, he was locked in to where they obviously, why wouldn't they? Here's a raw talent, a guy who has been doing it for less than 2 years.
Yeah.
And, he's got everything you need to be a star in this business. He was already on my really, really short list of who's the guy that can be the FSW heavyweight champion.
Right.
And it just reiterates to me how good I am at seeing talent that is beyond just being a top local guy. As we always talked about the legacy FSW champions, LA Knight and Cage and Cross and Bay and Lacey and Hammerstone, the guys that didn't get the titles were Sefa Fatu, Carl Fredericks, and Toa. So if you had those three guys, if they were around long enough before they got signed, because they got signed, like we were ready to pull the trigger, on Sefa. And then it was just like, hey, Oos. I'm like, oh boy. You hate that conversation that starts with, hey, Oos. It's either I need more money or I got somewhere else to go. And obviously with Sefa, you knew eventually he was going to have somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
When Cody Rhodes mentioned 6 people and 3 of them work for fucking FSW, that alone should make fucking people take notice. He mentioned Chris Bay, he mentioned Hammerstone, and he mentioned Sefa Fatu. So I'm not sure. He may have even mentioned Cross. But at that point, Cross obviously was long past, so he probably didn't. But that's 3 guys in a very small grouping of people that at the time the executive vice president of AEW is swooning over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also, Joe, I think that brings up a fascinating point, too, of as much power as Cody had in that role and how aware he was of those guys, he didn't even get the opportunity to, essentially bring those guys in, get them under contract, which to me shows kind of the confusion, miscommunication in the front office, because if those guys weren't under contract, if there was any point in that 3 years that Cody was there, why wouldn't you have on signing the guys? Because of
I'm not even concerned about signing them. At the time, Cody had done some open challenges. So if Cody's your TNT champion and he's talking about these guys, pretty sure Hammerstone was signed with MLW, so it didn't matter.
Right.
But why couldn't you have brought in Chris Bay to have an open challenge match? Why couldn't you have brought in Sefa to have that match? Because they were doing those types of things where they were bringing in uncontracted guys to get a shot, and it wasn't like as an enhancement role where they got beat up in 30 seconds and the match was over. They weren't being brought in like Barry Horowitz. Well, I wouldn't even say Barry Horowitz because Barry Horowitz got a lot of offense in. But he wasn't being brought in like,
Barry O.
Who?
Barry O.
Yeah,
Barry Orton.
I only remember him working for Buffalo Jim in 1999 against Too Cold Scorpio at the Orleans.
Wow.
And the main event was Rush defending the Buffalo Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Championship against the Tonga Kid, brother. Tonga couldn't take the pin, though. Gotta protect my brand, brother.
I'm surprised.
Did it count out? Did it count out?
You haven't brought in Tonga, man. I'm sure he'd go
That
for a
dude
match.
hits me up every once in a while. You know, he is a crazy dude, man. I met him a couple times. He is
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah. He's fucking amazing. I love
You know,
that
he's
guy.
got his ideas. Oh, I got this great idea. It's like, bro, I'm not bringing in your whole family to run this whole angle where you're going to beat up all our guys. Thanks. I appreciate the idea.
Man. Um, Gonna look here at wrapping up this week. Anything you want to add for the fans? Anything you've come across this week? Any good wins at the casino this week as well?
Yeah, finally had a good win. Yesterday, I hit a royal on the 50 cents. So, you know.
Woo! Yeah.
Then I hit another royal, but it was only on the dime. So that was just chump change. So I finally
Yeah.
had a good win.
And anyone who, if you're not familiar with video poker, um, that hitting a royal on a 50 cent, that's a nice day. That's
Nice day.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I might be
take
able to afford Killer Cross again.
Yeah. I was gonna say take the wife out for a nice dinner. You're of course going to. Well, I could book Cross for a show.
You
I'm
know.
sure. I'm sure the wife appreciates that.
What do you mean? I just get a comp at the Sunset. What do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Any other final thoughts? Any final words for the listeners today?
Yeah. By the time this airs, we're about a week away. You know, and luck of the draw seems to be looking pretty good. Still got some front rows for all the shows, which in all honesty is a little disappointing to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I looked at the cards, Black Label, GCW, the Revolver Show, even Violence and Suffering, who's running in town. I've been talking with that guy. He was like, "Hey, bro, I would have loved to partnered up. It's like would have loved to have you, but we follow each other. We've talked a little." We did post on Twitter that we were looking for some companies to partner up with. We don't really know you that well, so we're not reaching out personally because we know you like Brett. Like I talked to the Black Label Pro guy once or twice before, but Brett put together them coming in, and I got Sammy to come in, and we were supposed to have Booker T. So we really were set, but then that kind of fell through. And Ed wanted to use the facility, and it was like, dude, there's no way we're going to be able to go back and forth. You're going to have to do it at the Nugget. And, we made that work. So, but if you look at the cards, as I said, the best talent in the world is going to be in here. John Morrison got booked now.
Yeah.
And he's on the show. And Josh Alexander, the Impact champion. And as I said, we got Tom Lawler, New Japan star, and Mike Bailey. And even Psycho Clown, he's not on our show, but he's going to be in town. And Matt Cardona and the Briscoes. And, whatever other surprises. Super Crazy is going to be here. So no matter what genre that you like, Joey Janela,
Yeah.
The one name I have not seen, though, so far is Nick Gage.
Yeah. And in following some of the recent GCW shows, it doesn't seem like Gage has been on. So I wonder if there is an issue with injury there, or
I know he hosted a couple of shows ago.
Yeah,
like he came out, he opened the show, but I'm kind of thinking maybe he's just taking a step back and maybe trying to heal up a little because he's done some damage to his body over the years, and maybe none more than he has. So
yeah,
you know what? Well-deserved break. I know they made a big deal that he was the only person ever to actually sign a contract with GCW. Now, what it entails, none of us know. So maybe I'll get Brett drunk on AEW weekend and he can spill the beans for me. He's not that big, so maybe you don't need that much liquor to get him fucked up. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, yeah. Hey, just let me know because I'll show up. I'll roll the camera, man. And we'll have a DeFalco Files, kind of table for two,
There you go. Live from the bar.
live from the bar. And at we just do it down the street here. We'll do it at your wife's place of work, and
Yeah, we won't do it at that evil bar downtown.
yeah.
Fuck them motherfuckers.
Final thought here, Joe. This AEW is got a lot of obviously publicity in the wrestling community over the last 3 years. They did their first Double or Nothing here in 2019. You had less of a buzz going on in terms of independent shows around that. Do you think?
I don't think there was any.
Yeah, I think the only thing that was going on really was the Starcast with Connor and Thompson's panels and various podcasts going live and stuff like that, which ultimately was kind of a fan fest. Do you think that with the buzz that AEW brings, and hopefully with this becoming at least a 1 year regular stop for AEW, that by fans seeing what you guys are presenting from FSW and the amount of talent, that if you come away with 20, 40, 100, and through the pay-per-views even more, 300-400 more fans made because of this weekend, does that really in the end come down to what makes it successful for you is really the idea of having more eyes on the product, and hopefully this becoming a yearly thing where fans will now be aware, hey, we got to make time to go to this FSW show because last year it was spectacular what they did. So that's something that ultimately is the payoff for you, is that extra exposure to new fans.
Without a doubt. Like when we first did anything, we brought in Jordan Oliver to wrestle Hammerstone on GCW weekend. We didn't really work together in any way. He was in town, and we ended up selling a bunch of tickets to people that came into town a day early. And the atmosphere there with the GCW fans and the FSW fans gave me the idea of, wow, how much cooler would this be if it was match versus match instead of just one match on the show?
Yeah.
And that was a big show. It was changing the game. And I believe Leo Rush made that show. I'm not 100. Yes, he wrestled, I think, Trey Lamar, right?
Yeah, that was the appearance he made before he did the
right, because Chris Bay ended up not being able to make it or something like that for that show. And that gave us the catapult because they were coming back in August, which was SummerSlam weekend. So I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And GCW likes running the night before the major show. So, I would have obviously preferred to take the Saturday 8 p.m. time slot this time around. But for them to work together, they're going to take that spot no matter what. So they'll not work with us and go to a different arena. So it's like, well, now I'm going to have to fight with everybody to get fans. That the only person who would do that has an ego through the roof and is not trying to do what's best for everybody. It's, you're using your ego and you're putting them in front of the fans, the wrestlers, everybody. So we take a step back. We take the next spot. Hey, what if we try doing a show 5 hours before the pay-per-view in the afternoon, SummerSlam day? Okay, we sell the place out. So obviously that's a smart business decision because we were able to draw off the GCW brand. The difference is AEW fans and WWE fans, we know, are totally different. So the AEW fans are way more aware of a lot of the guys that are going to be on our show compared to the WWE fans who pretty much don't know any of the GCW people. So, yeah, we're relying on AEW, but we're also relying on GCW because GCW is going to bring people from California and Arizona and everywhere in that immediate area that are coming just for them. Now, they may go to the Sunday show. They may go to Double or Nothing. But I'm pretty sure they're probably not going to Dynamite. You know what I mean? Or they might not be going to Rampage. So they're hopefully coming to our show. You know, and like I said, you know, the key factor in all of this is, as you said, the fan base. We got a few new people who came to our show because Jordan Oliver was on it, and they got to see Hammerstone and a lot of our really good talent. Then we did the FSW GCW show, and people saw, hey, wow, this Cutthroat Cody dude's crazy motherfucker, man. He got lit up by Nick Cage. That was fucking insane. As well as our regulars that are on that show, you know, and now we do another one. So where Sami Callihan's Revolver has a really good, you know, a really good following. So now the GCW fans who are aware of us because they're also in town will say, hey, wow, that FSW show looks fucking great. But now we got the Revolver people who maybe buy it on Fight TV. They can't see it live. They're going to see all their favorite stars mixed in with the FSW side, which is a Willie Mack, a Tom Lawler, a Hammerstone, a Chris Bay, a first time maybe seeing a Matt Vandegrift, you know, all these guys that are like tearing it up everywhere else that they may have just kind of heard of but never really seen. But they're going to buy it now because they're going to see Trey Miguel and Mike Bailey and Rich Swann and that whole crew. So it can't hurt in any way. The only way it could hurt is if we run a shitty show and we had shitty wrestlers and they were on the show and their guys had to make our guys look good because they weren't good enough to do it themselves. Yeah. And since we're not in that position, you know, it makes me extremely confident that, you know, win or lose money-wise, these aren't shows that are done so we can make a profit, you know, because odds are we probably won't. Shows cost too much, but we're looking at long-term that down the line will people buy shows. You know, we've seen it where people have flown in from Florida to come to our show. We got guys who used to come to Ring of Honor who stopped going there, but would still come in from Utah just to watch our show. So, you know, and the key is, it's like we have an open invitation to run a show in Atlantic City. You know, I got hit up again. And, you know, the thing is, you were talking earlier, it's way different because when we're in Vegas, we have to get everybody to New Jersey. So that means our local talent, who doesn't cost us very much, now have to all get another $400 to $600 flight. And lately it's more $600 than $400. You know, if you're flying in 10 guys, that's $6,000, not counting what people are getting paid. And do we got to pay for hotel rooms and, you know, other talent that's coming in? You know, we can't run Nick Xander versus Brett the Thread at the main event in Atlantic City. You know, we have to have probably Matt Cardona, Big Cass, Killer Cross, you know, mixed in with some of our younger guys to make them aware of it. So that show, at best, is costing double what like a Mecca might cost without the Mecca talent. So until hotel, not even really hotel, because I would think the Showboat's going to give us a decent amount of rooms, but now also how many vans do we got to rent? Because the nearest airport is Philadelphia. You know,
Right.
that's an hour and a half, 2 hour drive. So you got to hire people to drive people. Everybody's coming in at different times. How many different people? So that the cost of that show, you know, really shows. And I can't give enough credit to GCW for what they fucking do. You know, it's like, I'm not kissing nobody's ass. But, you know, when we run a weekend or we do this, it's like, fuck, this is draining. There's times GCW does that 3 weekends in a month.
Yeah.
Like from place to place to place. And, you know, they gotta find production people, they gotta find the rings, they gotta work with people, they gotta get the talent. It is fucking crazy. Like, I don't know. Like, again, I look at Brett as like with me, but I have to believe he's got a lot more people in the office. He has to. If he doesn't, man, that dude's going to pass out before he's 40.
Yeah. And as we go here, final question. What is your budget for doors and light tubes for next weekend?
Well, thanks to Humanity for Habitat for Humanity, we get the doors at like $10 a piece. The one thing you've noticed is with the rise in wood pricing that most people just buy the doors. Like, we bought the doors at Home Depot when we had to, a couple of them. They were like $45-$50 each. Yeah. Well, I don't know who, you know, thank whoever, but who takes their doors and trades them in? Do they get $1 for them? Like, hey, I got 4 doors. You guys take them? Oh, yeah, we'll give you $1 a piece. Like, but they have 100 doors sometimes there, you know? Like, we redid my floors at my house, and, you know, a couple of the doors were damaged beforehand, so we replaced the doors. And I told the wife, whoa, hold on, don't throw them out. You know, they're going to the school. You know, can't get rid of doors like that anymore. We got to keep them.
Oh, man.
I could just hire somebody to go to a construction site and just pick up as many doors as anybody renovating and shit.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to throw them out.
Yeah. Just bring a pickup and just lay them.
Can you get into the junk? Can I drive into a junkyard? Like where they dump the garbage and like the doors and stuff?
You know, that's a good question. I think you probably could, but I don't know if so sometimes the junkyards will turn around and, you know, get rid of the doors for a price as well. But that's actually that's a thought. I never thought of that.
But I guess for $10 you really can't beat that price. You know, I don't want to go rummaging through and then get stung by a syringe, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, fans, FSW Network is $6.99 a month. Check it out. You get
support us so we can buy some fucking doors, will you? Christ. You got 2 shows, Thursday and Sunday. Thursday's got some of the best up and coming talent in the world, and it's $7 for the entire month. And you got a show on Sunday with more great young talent.
Yeah.
And you get to see all the FSW talent that you're going to see. And you'll even get to see the FSW GCW show. And you can see Sefa Fatu and Brian Cage and Morrison and Kevin Nash and Psycho Clown and Adonis who killed it. Like, Matt Hardy. Like, every motherfucker that's, like, killing it in the business, we've pretty much had in an FSW event. So, you know, Ricochet, Swan, the whole IWF collection, Aries, Chris Sabin, Lance Hoyt.
It really does play like a WWE network, type of tool, because you get to see all these guys, doing what they do best, and that is going out there, putting on a show, and not worrying about, the storyline where they have to execute this, that, and the other. It's good fun. It's a really nice look, and definitely for $7, man. It actually a penny under $7. So I can't say enough about getting the network. And then, of course, Fight TV looks like you'll have a home for the Friday pay per view. Is that correct? Or
Yes,
are
Deuces Wild is already available on Fight TV, as well as all the other events from Full Tilt.
right?
GCW, their show at 8 p.m. Saturday. Sammy's show 4 o'clock on Saturday. Revolvers is going to be on Fight, and the Black Label, which if you're on the East Coast, starts at 2 a.m.
Right. So Brad Reeder, let
I
us
guarantee you,
know.
he's already bought all the pay-per-views.
Yeah, I want to know his. I want to know his comments at when it starts at 2 a.m. Just tell us how the coffee is, and tell us how the wrestling is. So
If the kid's gonna be allowed to be awake to watch it at 2 a.m. or he's gonna have to wait till the morning.
and speaking of him, I do have to say, as we finish here, he did mention his daughter, and she's at an age where a lot of kids start kind of figuring out and just kind of looking at wrestling now as, oh, okay, I kind of get it, and all right, their stories, but these guys are athletic, etc., etc. But she is still a fan to the core in believing the stories that are being told. And I think that's something that's very important too. If you have kids out there, man, encourage them to watch wrestling and to never give up that part of you that wants to lok at it as something that is just pure and real and happening. And you can't go wrong with looking at the perspective from the eyes when you were a 10-year-old, because we all tend to get a little cynical as we hit our 30s, then our 40s, then the 50s, and it's sometimes it causes that that bad blood of this company sucks or that person sucks and they don't do this right. And if you just look at it as like it's wrestling, it's fun, let yourself have fun again, and that's what I think you'll find this whole weekend. It's just going to be really fun because the guys are excited to do this, and man, you can't go wrong when the talent is absolutely 100% all in on just having a good time and wrestling matchups that they probably haven't wrestled or haven't wrestled in a
Yeah,
while.
yeah, a lot of first time events.
Yeah,
A lot of those guys, they're plugging it first time ever.
yeah.
So, and also the return of the Vegas Bad Boys Full Tilt pre-show.
Yep. Yeah, we got we launched the talks today, so we will.
Yes, I got the message from Lawson. It's like, yeah, Dave, we've already established it. Thanks.
And Dave, that was your shout out. And when you're asked to do a shout out, and Joe, you hit it organically without me having to say anything, thumbs up. So
Yeah, it ain't like we're bringing up all the shitty things he does. You know what I'm saying? Can do a
all right,
whole show on that.
everyone, and we'll expect Dave Lawson on the show at some point so we can talk about all the shitty stuff he does.
Yeah, after I die.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And until next week, we'll see you guys.